I haven't always found it necessary to use any grip tapes for my mouse, one because not a lot of mice I regularly use have that bad of a coating, and two, I just don't find the grip tape to have that much of an impact anyways even if I did use them. So when I found out about the ClawMate, I was really intrigued. Prior to trying the ClawMate, I had used the sew spacers, but they weren't really assisting my grip, instead just providing a clear indication of where I should place my fingers. Now the ClawMate was made by Struth Gaming. He has a lot of in-depth guides on different methods to aiming, and I highly recommend you give them a look because he does provide you with a lot more to think other than to just slap your hand on the mouse and call it a day. Anyways, according to him, the ClawMate improves your grip on the mouse by introducing a more natural way to place your fingers. When you're holding something, your fingers naturally close in at an angle, but this isn't reflected when you hold the mouse. You can see that rather than an angle, your fingers are closing in sideways into the mouse to provide a better grip. This goes against the natural way of holding an object and hence is what the ClawMate is aiming to fix. I'm going to be talking about how my experience with the ClawMate went and what the limitations are. So they're basically these small triangular rubber objects that are installed onto the side of the mouse. You get a thin and a thicker adhesive tape in the box along with 8 of the triangle rubbers and a toothpick. This toothpick was more important than I thought because I couldn't get the film off of one side of the adhesive tape, so I ended up using the toothpick to poke and peel it off slowly. The thick adhesive was what I used because it's stronger hold, but also because the thinner tape just wasn't able to be installed. It's really humid right now and the film wouldn't come off, so I would end up ruining the tape instead. After installing it though, it did feel very natural to use. It took a couple of games to adjust, but the additional grip it gives you is super nice. Rather than my fingers pushing into the side of the mouse, they're now actually pulling down onto the ClawMates, and I only needed to apply half of the pressure I needed on other mice without grips to achieve a locked in feeling with this. Apart from that, the triangles can also be used in several ways. You can use the steeper end, which gives your fingers kind of a hook in order to grip the mouse. The wider area gives users the most surface area at a slight angle, which compared to the steeper end, where you are placing the pressure downwards, here you can instead apply it diagonally if that's your preference. Lastly, you could stack it together if you need extra bulk on the side. This usually happens if your mouse is too small and your fingers are forced to curl inwards by a lot, though stacking seems more of a gimmick than a practical use. I tried it for half a day and it did feel kind of wobbly when I placed more force onto it, which is what you don't want with the ClawMate. Even so, the fact that you can turn it around and have a different result is already better than most generic grip tapes out there. I personally use the steeper end the most because I do pull down on the mouse when using the ClawMate. The wide area didn't work the best when I did that as my fingers were slipping out occasionally when I started sweating. The wide area should be used if you still want to do it the traditional way, placing some pressure onto the sides of the mouse. The ClawMate is not perfect though. Not everyone who uses the ClawMate will reap its benefits because of a limitation. Like the name suggests, this grip is most ideal for claw grippers, questionable for palm, and doesn't work for fingertip. Palm users have no need to pull down the mouse as their hand wraps around the mouse anyways, providing them with a really comfortable grip. Fingertip users on the other hand can pull down on the mouse when they grip it, but they suffer from instability the moment you have any extreme vertical motion requiring the fingers to move. This misplaces where your fingertips contact the ClawMate, and at this point you're basically gripping only the sharper ends of it, which does not give a lot of surface area to work with. On claw grip, the range of motion for the fingers are much less than on a fingertip, hence the grip works okay as you'll be transitioning to your wrist and arm for aiming much earlier. The second point I want to bring up is that the ClawMate might be fundamentally wrong for certain group of users. Like I mentioned earlier, this works the best for people who press in and down, but there are a lot of people who don't do that. On my relaxed claw, the pressure I apply is entirely to the sides itself. If we take a look at the example of when we hold other objects, sure, there are times where we pull the object in, like when we would hold a ball, but there are a vast amount of examples where this doesn't apply. You wouldn't hold a pen and pull it in. You have your index, your thumb, and also your middle finger pushing in from each direction. If you put the pen in, it would create unnecessary tension that makes your handwriting look bad. And yes, closing in at an angle is very natural for the anatomy of our hands, but that doesn't always mean that it's the best. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a standard for how we hold certain things like a violin bow or a guitar pick. That being said, how you grip a mouse is very subjective. You'll find a lot of people that grip their mouse differently, and it all comes down to what works for you and what doesn't. This is why the ClawMate is viable and is worth a try in my opinion, because it opens up a new possibility for you to experiment with, and the price is not bad either. In conclusion, consider picking one up and try it for yourself. It might not be for me, but I get the idea of it and it can help certain people.